Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Woman in the Middle, presented by Women in Cybersecurity and hosted by Jackie of JackiesinSecurity. That's me. In cybersecurity, a woman in the middle attack occurs when an actor inserts themselves into a conversation between two machines, two parties, two packets to control the flow of information. But what if we use that position for good? So Woman in the Middle is a podcast series that's a collaboration between myself and WiCyS that honestly explores the disconnects between theory and reality from an early and late stage career journey perspective, and the delicate balance or imbalance between work, life, and career. We're moving beyond the standard how to get certified advice to tackle the human element of security, from the taboo of the queen bee rivalry to the diversity hire shadow and the raw reality of burnout and technical gatekeeping. We're having honest conversations that usually only happen behind closed doors, and it's really an interrogation of culture, a celebration of resilience, and a roadmap for how we can stop competing and start connecting. I'm really excited that you're here today. And before we get started, I want to let everybody know that registration for WiCyS's 2026 conference is open. Join the WiCyS community from March 11th to 13th at the Gaylord National Harbor Resort and Convention Center in Washington, D.C. for a premier event dedicated to recruiting, retaining, and advancing women in cybersecurity. We have keynote speakers and technical presentations, hands-on workshops and panel discussions, networking, career growth opportunities. There's even a career fair, resume reviews, and mock interviews, plus a really exciting Capture the Flag competition, an escape room, and more. Don't miss the chance to connect, learn, and grow with a vibrant community of cybersecurity professionals and supporters. You can get details and register at WiCyS.org, and I will personally be there recording interviews on site for the Woman in the Middle podcast. I am really excited because joining me today, I have Lynn Dohm, the Executive Director of WiCyS. Lynn, welcome.
Hi, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Great to have you. And I also have Amber Linnea Kirylak. And Amber, you are a recent graduate of the WiCyS program. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it's still moving forward because I have one more exam.
Oh,
At
boy.
the end of the month, I'm still studying.
Awesome. Well, great to have you both here. Since this is our first episode, I thought that it would be fun to start out with talking about, how WiCyS came to be. And Lynn, I think you'd be the best person to give us a little bit of perspective about that. And then Amber, as we move along, I want to learn more about what you've gotten out of the WiCyS program, and why we're encouraging women to go through the program early in their careers. So Lynn, let's start with the genesis of WiCyS. So when was WiCyS founded? How did it come about? And how did you get involved in it?
Yes, all right. Yeah, so WiCyS was started in 2014 when our founder, Dr. Amber Linnea she was at Tennessee Tech University at the time. She came across some data and research that showed that there was 11% of women in the cybersecurity workforce. And quite honestly, she was surprised it was even as high as 11%. She wasn't seeing 11% of women in cybersecurity in any of her circles of industry, academia, or government. And so her idea was very simple. If women in cybersecurity exist, which she's not having visibility to, let's bring them all together in a technical conference so we can learn and grow in the collective space. And that is how the very first WiCyS conference kicked off. She was awarded $70,000 through National Science Foundation. We're a true NSF success story where they give you a little bit of money and you make something grow because of it. And after the very first year, after 350 women attended, a lot of big companies continued to fund and grow the conference. And then in 2018, we realized that in order to complete our mission to recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity, that we have to do so much more than just a conference that's one and done each and every year. That the momentum to make impact and to provide data and to really drive the change that the workforce needed, that we needed to become a 501c3 member-based nonprofit And so that's what happened in 2018. The mission remained the same: recruit, retain, and advance women in cybersecurity. But then we became a member based organization, and now we have over 11,000 members. We have over 70 professional affiliates, which are satellite organizations all around the world, throughout Africa and Asia and Europe, Canada, Australia, all throughout the United States. And then in addition to that, we have over 300 student chapters all around the world as well. So what we do is we provide accessibility and opportunities for individuals to not only get into cybersecurity, and that's Amber, and find the hidden talent, and for individuals to understand what is their determination, what is their grit, and for us to be able to amplify that and bring them into the cybersecurity workforce. But then also, really importantly, look at that mid-career individual, because if we're not focusing on retention but only building the pipeline, we're perpetuating the problem. So cybersecurity in general has an 8% higher attrition rate than non-IT roles. And so WiCyS is an organization that really took a real close look at what is that retention? How could we build programming efforts for those mid-career individuals? Because we want them to be the catalyst going into those senior positions. We want career growth and advancement opportunities, and to really make them indispensable for their organizations and have the real clear trajectory of their careers. And so we're really happy. Everything is going strong. Last year, we ran over 100 programming efforts. We engaged over 50,000 individuals. And our signature conference is coming up in 1 month. So always a great time to get connected with everyone and really feel that energy that comes forward from that event.
Yeah, I think I'm probably one of the poster children for you can't be what you can't see. Because
Yep.
I got my first computer, goodness, I think I was like 10 when my mom bought her first computer and was, troubleshooting, and then going into the late 90s, early 2000s was swapping out my CD drive for a CD burner, for a CD ripper. I was putting new memory sticks in, putting a new modem in. But it literally never occurred to me to go into any type of technical career because I didn't see any women in those technical careers. And so I guess it was unfortunate my parents didn't recognize that. And I don't know if it was just that, in the very, very early 2000s when I was going into college, it just wasn't something that I thought of, because I actually took my computer 101 program when I was a psychology major from one of the people who helped build ARPANET, one of the first internets. And it just, because there weren't enough women in visible positions where I could really envision myself in one of those careers, it just never really occurred to me. So it's been such a pleasure to get involved with WiCyS. And I know you say that I do more things than most people but you are one of the busiest people I know. And just seeing how WiCyS has grown just in the handful of years that I've been involved has been really amazing. Amber, how did you get introduced to WiCyS initially, and what was your background before that?
It's a bit of a story, but I'll give you the high level. So prior to my interest in cybersecurity, I have a bachelor's of fine arts in photography. So that was my specialty. And my specific job role prior to me transitioning was I was a post-production artist, photography assistant, and photographer for one of the top photography studios in the Philadelphia area. Pretty much my I would say my software specialty and technical specialty was if you need something done in Photoshop, you called me. I was the expert in post-processing and color correction, like retouching in general. But how I came across WiCyS was we all know what happened in 2020. Everything locked down. And I was furloughed from my position, and I'm not the type of person to just sit there and wait for it to all blow over. And I wasn't interested in fishing or quilting or making bread, as some of the things that people I knew were doing. And I stumbled across an article that was Harvard is releasing free online courses for you to take during the lockdowns. And I said, what else am I going to do? And I'm interested in computer sciences. I'm like, oh, I know HTML and CSS and a little bit of Java. This will be easy. It was definitely a challenge, but
Mhm.
it was a challenge that which I succeeded. I did get my certifications in Introduction to Computer Sciences and in Introduction to Python programming. But throughout that journey of learning those programming languages, I went down the rabbit hole and I ended up meeting a friend of my father's who works in cybersecurity. And he gave me some pointers on, oh, you should check out CISSP, you should check out these organizations. And that was the seed that got me to hit the ground running. And I was looking up, okay, how do I get into cybersecurity? Like, you know, organizations that support cybersecurity, people like career changers. And I was looking at women in cybersecurity, and that's when I found WiCyS. And I did a bit of digging, and I joined back in, I believe it was 20, either I was looking at it at 2021, but I joined in 2022. And the reason why I joined WiCyS was a lot of the resources and the security programs there were something that were of interest to me, and they looked a lot more engaging than other organizations. They were not just networking events. It was hands-on, it was webinars, it was there was a lot more engagement even on LinkedIn at that time. So that is how I found WiCyS, and from there on, I just kept on hitting the ground running.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned Lynn kind of mid-career because as the woman in the middle, I am kind of hopefully in kind of the middle part of my security career. And one of the things that I've found, especially at the WiCyS conference, I was in the Career Hub last year, is that every time I have the opportunity to mentor people or to talk about my career in security, I almost feel like I get more out of it than they do. I get messages all the time from people saying, "Hey, the things that you shared with me really helped." But having to kind of assess my career, assess what skills I have, how they've gotten me places, how I navigate the world. Because like you said, like I think we're up to about 18%, women representation in security now,
Mhm.
but it doesn't always feel that way. And there are some of the very, very high level security groups that I'm in.
Mhm.
It's a much higher percentage actually. So I think the percentage of women to make it to very elite very highly technically skilled places in security is a little bit higher, but in average security conferences, I was just at one a couple days ago. It can feel lower, and there are definitely times that I'm in a very large room and there are maybe one or two other women there. So the ability to kind of really connect with other women and reassure them that like, "Hey, there's gonna be some times where you're the only woman in the room and it feels a little bit weird," but also just share kind of what I've learned and how I've made it through that. I always feel like I get more out of it than they do, and it feels a little bit selfish.
Jackie, I feel the same exact way with my mentoring cohorts that I've been a part of within the WiCyS organization. Those cohorts I've leaned in on as much as they've leaned in to my experience. Like we are a cohort, a mentoring cohort together, and it's definitely such a shared and powerful experience when you have that really deep and rich relationship. It's amazing.
Mm.
That reminded me though, one of my favorite stories is we held a meetup many, many years ago, our first meetup at RSAC. And our cybersecurity and IT manager now actually was at that meetup. She wasn't our cybersecurity and IT manager at the time. And I will never forget walking out of our meetup and walking down the hall at RSAC and her saying, "All right, now I could do this." And it was just the power of making connections. Nobody knew each other. We all got together. We all had a powerful and rich conversation of where we're at. We're all exploring, different areas of cybersecurity and heading into the same exact conference, a conference we love and adore. But just having that power of the community there is so impactful on what kind of experience you're going to have.
Yeah.
So it's really amazing. And then through that, over the years, we continue to grow our presence at conferences like RSAC and Black Hat because of those exact experiences that we're able to provide others. It's the connection of the network.
Yeah, Amber, how do you feel like being able to connect with earlier in your cybersecurity journey as you were getting into this, how do you feel like being able to connect with other women helped you in kind of taking on this challenge and entering an industry that is very male dominated?
So, to my surprise, and I found that in my area, we have the WiCyS Delaware Valley affiliate.
Oh, yeah.
So that's actually a group that I found where I was like, okay, yes, finally, there is a group of folks that are just like me. We're very like-minded. We're all having the same goal. We all have the same values, and also supporting women and everybody else in cyber who want to get into cybersecurity or grow in cybersecurity. But to my surprise, when I first started, there were not many folks except for maybe a few that, through LinkedIn and on the internet, but there was such a disconnect. So in the beginning, I did have a lot of male mentors who helped point me in the right direction. And WiCyS was kind of that safe haven, especially with a lot of the programs where we all get to go in a Slack channel and we all get to network and communicate. And I found a lot more friendships through those Slack channels than I did networking in person elsewhere. And I know you mentioned the conference, but one of the best things that and best experiences I had was going to the Dallas conference and meeting the folks that um, I would say leveled up in the tiers with for the security training scholarship, getting to meet them in person, we getting to hang out, um, being able to talk, being able to have that community
Right.
and being able to, you know, be in a place where yes, it's okay that you are technical. Yes, it's okay you have these quirks. You enjoy doing what you're doing. We're all here together. And I did find a couple others that will say are just like me, which who are so enthusiastic, especially on the technical side of cybersecurity. Like we can talk all day and night.
Yeah, and not to say that everybody in security is a flavor of neurospicy, but you'll definitely find a much higher percentage than in most other industries, so being able to find that has been one of the what I tell a lot of, women just in general when I speak at high schools and colleges and, places like that. I always tell people that a couple things that really stand out to me about cybersecurity is I spent almost 15 years in finance and venture capital and banking before finding cybersecurity. And one, cybersecurity is one of the safest industries for me personally in terms of feeling safe, in that men in cybersecurity tend to skew very respectful. And so I had some really unpleasant experiences in finance early in my career that, it was difficult. And what I find in cybersecurity is that a lot of the men tend to be significantly more aware of things that can make women feel uncomfortable. And I've also had many experiences where men will proactively step in to handle the behavior of other men, whether it's being interrupted when I'm talking, and actually having a man say to another man, like, hey, I think Jackie was still speaking, let's let her finish and then we can continue the conversation. Or, just in general, just the percentage of, I hate to say creeps, but creeps is much lower in cybersecurity. And then also, I've never felt more free to just be my weird self. And I'm a quirky individual. I look like, the love child of Lisa Frank and Punky Brewster. I am colorful. I'm loud. And you'll find that there are some very introverted people in security. There are some very pretend extroverted and real extroverted. I'm kind of a pretend extrovert. As long as my social battery's above like 30%, I'm really energetic and ready to go. But then once it runs out, like I get back to my hotel room after a conference and I'll realize that I've just been sitting on the end of my bed in complete silence with my shoes still on for like 90 minutes doing absolutely nothing. But yeah, I've always just felt insecurity so kind of accepted for who I am, and just to see so many different people from so many different walks of life, with so many weird quirks and hyper focuses and special interests come together and just really accept each other. It's been one of the better things that I've done in my life because I tended to walk through finance where everybody's expected to kind of be in this very specific like banker mold, wearing the same suit, the same, where in cybersecurity, it's like we just celebrate diversity so much. And that's been really, really fulfilling for me.
I love that, Jackie, because you shared that so eloquently about how fulfilling it is to be in that space with so many just like really diverse personalities around you, and a lot of very curious individuals, a lot of very hyper-focused individuals. And, in general, WiCyS has been and always will be not just a women's only organization, that we're a community of women and men and allies and advocates and all individuals that are concerned about the critical workforce shortage. They're concerned about some of the challenges within the cybersecurity workforce, and they want to do good for the sake of good. And they join along with the WiCyS mission to be a part of that movement, part of that momentum. And when I first started as executive director in 2019, I would say a good 2 years of my job was getting on the calls and explaining what WiCyS is all about to employer partners, to philanthropic individuals, to foundations, to conference sponsors, and really just getting the message of WiCyS out there. And now, just this week, yesterday, I had a call and I got on the call and I was talking to this gentleman, and he was in Saudi Arabia, so we weren't on a video call. We were just talking, and he's like, "I know all about WiCyS. You don't have to tell me because I've been actively involved for many, many years, and I see all the work you're doing." And it's great to have these allies and advocates out there championing us and then reaching out and wondering how else can they partner and support and amplify the message. That's what it's all about. And it's a really powerful experience to have that around you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that because I think it's important to note that. I've previously had men say to me like, "Oh, it's an event for women. I shouldn't go." And I'm like, "Well, if you care about women, if you know a woman, if you've supported a woman, you probably should go because it's important not just for us to have a safe space to connect with each other, but also to have a safe space where we can see that we have allies out there. And, being part of the WiCyS Executive Leaders Network, that's one of the things that's been really nice is to, log on and see lots of like all these amazing women in these very high level positions across industries, but also see men show up and really care and really want to help and fix the problem. And I think there are a lot of them out there. So, we want to encourage any men who happen to be listening to this podcast, get involved with WiCyS as well, because it
Mhm.
is I always say it's great to have lots of women, but at this point, I don't need to be more empowered. I am very empowered. What I need is a whole bunch of men who know how to coexist with empowered women and know how to hold other men accountable when things happen that are not in line with that. And I've found more of that in security than any other industry that I've worked in, but we can always do better. So we really do need to get more men involved in the effort to diversify cybersecurity. Yeah. Amber, tell us about the programming that you've been through with WiCyS so far and kind of what you've gotten out of it and, what you would like to see in terms of how you expect WiCyS to be involved as your journey evolves from early stage to you end up somebody like me who's in the middle of their security career.
All right. So I'm actually going to go back to when I first joined WiCyS. So when I first joined, and this is actually great, hopefully this is great advice for those that are interested in joining. Um, Take advantage of the security training programs. So in the page in WiCyS, when you see security programs, take a look at them and take advantage. Mark your calendars of anything that's of interest that you can dedicate time to. Um, Second is the Bright Talk. I know there was a webinar earlier today, but take advantage of those webinars, especially if you're looking for CPE credits. I've gained a lot of value in them, even though sometimes I can't watch them live. Oftentimes, many of them are recorded, so you can always go back and listen in, especially on that drive home. But in the beginning, when I joined WiCyS, I took advantage of every single security training program. So you have the SANS security training program, you had the Target. I think there was a couple other small ones in between, and some of them I had to back away because I couldn't make the commitments for. But anytime there's an opportunity, seize that opportunity, make time for it. And the value I got from them, I will tell you about how persistent I was with that security training scholarship. Took me 3 tries to make it to tier 2. And then I just kept climbing and climbing and climbing. And even though, and I know one of the things that a lot of people like to talk about is, when was the time that you stumbled? And I will say, the first time I tried for the scholarship, I did okay, didn't make it, but it was a starting point.
Mhm.
And what that did was allowed me to be curious about, okay, what are CTFs? What is it that I'm doing? And let me take this and do more with it. And then that's when the next year I said, okay, I have a little bit more understanding. And then didn't happen again, and I said, "Okay, let me go down this avenue." And then that's when, I really started exploring through the tools that WiCyS provide, the programs that provide it. It was essentially like almost like a kickoff to, "Here's where my new interest is. Here's where my curiosity is going. Here is what I didn't know about cybersecurity. Let me explore this more."
Well, I think that's really important
Yeah.
because resilience is one of the most critical pieces of cybersecurity in general, right? Enterprise security, because you can do as great a job as you want trying to protect and defend, but if something really happens, your ability to be resilient and get back online is kind of one of the most important things. But I think personal resilience is also something that is really, really important. And I think sometimes our confirmation bias kicks in where if we fail at something, if we went into it with this kind of I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be able to do this attitude, and you fail, that's kind of just a confirmation for you that you should have quit in the first place. And some people will stop there. But I'm really glad you mentioned that because I have failed so many times in life, and people always say to me, like, you walk in like you own the room, like you take up space, and some of that is just a general, lack of social graces, but some of it is also that I've been homeless, I've been fired, I've been laid off, I have failed so publicly at doing something that I've been put on blast on Twitter by celebrities. I've made the news for failing. I have failed so many different ways in my career, and the ability to kind of draw lessons from that and not take it as, some type of definitive statement about you as a person, but like, okay, how would I do this differently?
Mhm.
I've almost been bankrupt so many times since being homeless and then making it out of that. And I've never taken that, I think younger in my career, I probably took those as like, oh, I knew that I was, I couldn't do this. But now at
Right.
this point in my career, being able to do an effective postmortem and say, okay, some of this I
Mhm.
need to take accountability for, but some things are just kind of outside your control. So I'm glad you brought that up because that was a question that I wanted to ask. And Lynn, I'm going to put you on the spot now.
Well,
So
it's just
can you
I do
identify
have
a
a
time that
follow-up though.
yeah. Can you identify a time, Lynn, that you've really failed doing something, but actually been able to take lessons that made you really successful in the future?
oh my gosh, yes, yes. I mean, there's so many times it's hard to count, like, especially where I'm at in my career, there's so many lessons learned at that very moment. But the one thing is that I always remained curious about the failure, and I've also observed others around me. And I didn't realize it at the time, but those were actually the tools and the skill set that helped leverage me throughout my career to build that resiliency, to kind of build of what I know that I don't want to be is how I build how I wanted to show up. And that was through observing leaders through their failure and really identifying the lack of accountability or the disruption that they've caused or their inability to see that they're immobilizing the teams that they're leading right now. Like, it was always just such a fascination and a curiosity of me when I was growing my career of how leaders actually lead. And when I first started with WiCyS, one of my first speaking engagements that I went around the circuit with was cybersecurity leadership, mobilize and not paralyze, because I have been around so many individuals that paralyze their teams through just their lack of paying attention and observing themselves and observing others in this space. So, I mean, isn't it fascinating where you could kick back in your career and be like, wow, so many things have come full circle? Like that mistake that was made 20 years ago, that was intentional. Like the universe already had another plan for me.
Mhm.
And if I didn't have that, it wouldn't have led me to pivot in my career, and it would have led me to make that decision to take that job, which wouldn't have led me to WiCyS, which wouldn't have, and now I'm executive director of the very own organization that helped mold and grow me in my career. And it's all a full circle moment. And you're like, it was intended to be this way right from the very start.
Yeah. Amber, did you have experiences before you got into security that kind of prepped you to be resilient like that?
Um, Basically, quite a bit actually. I was actually gonna reference one of the things that you mentioned about failures, and do you mind if I touch base on that?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
no, I should say no, I
So,
don't mind.
so one of the things that happened is when I was awarded, and it was for the 2020, what was it, 2024, 2025 security training scholarship. So I was awarded it in 2025 in January. 2 days after, I was laid off from my previous position. And it was like a hooray, and then it was, oh. However, I know some folks think of that as a failure, like, oh, you've been laid off from your position, but I have this scholarship. And the one thing that stuck in my head was something a professor had told me when I was in art school. He said it's not about the classes or the courses you take, it's what you make out of them. It's not about, he says you can take dance classes and still be a photographer. You can take painting courses and still be a dancer. It's all about what you get out of your education, what you get out of your time. And that sticks always in my head going, maybe this is a good thing. I now have the time that I can dedicate toward this scholarship, toward this training. I don't have to rush through it. I have the time to spend, 8 hours a day going down those rabbit holes, exploring,
Yeah.
asking those SMEs the questions, on the Slack channel, talking with other folks that also are part of the scholarship. And that resiliency also comes to how I was raised. My grandparents, they always said education, education, education. They can take away your house, they can take away your car, your clothes off your back, the food on their plate, but they cannot take away the knowledge that you consume.
Mhm.
And, that's something where like, one of my big hobbies is I always like reading. I love trivia books. Trivia is a big one. I love puzzles. And you could say my resiliency in this is what I wake up to, and this is what I strive to do every day. I don't, this is not a career that keeps me up at night. And that's the one thing you don't want to hear is when someone says, I can't sleep because of my job. No, I want to wake up to my job. I want to wake up to the day, to the new challenges. I want to be excited. And I'm going to steal this quote from one of my friends, Jason Wright. It's that dopamine rush. That's what helps me stay resilient. That's what helps me keep moving forward and always staying curious.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people that have ADHD can probably identify with that. All right. Well, this wraps up our portion on WiCyS in general, but stay tuned because we're going to be right back and we are going to dive into the WiCyS 2026 conference that's coming up and give you all kinds of fun details about that. Thanks, everybody. All right, welcome back to Woman in the Middle. I'm your host, Jackie McGuire. And if you are ready to move beyond just listening to our podcast and actively build your network, gain access to WiCyS's valuable career resources, connect with people who truly understand the industry and want to support the cybersecurity community, you should become a member for full access to training programs, a job board, membership, and a really strong community. And you can join WiCyS at WiCyS.org, and we'll look forward to seeing you there. I am back with Lynn Dohm and Amber Linnea Kirylak, and we are now going to talk about the WiCyS 2026 conference, which would be happening at the Gaylord Resort just outside DC. I have to give a plug for DC. So I spent several years living just outside DC in Maryland, and I couldn't be more excited because in addition to being able to see your beautiful faces and everybody at the conference, there's a pizza place in the DMV, and if you have never lived there, we call it the DMV, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, called Lido Pizza. And I have never had more addicting pizza in my entire life. So I will be eating several pounds of that in the couple days that I am at the event. But Lynn, why don't we start off with you? Why don't you tell us a little bit about the conference this year and what you're looking forward to, what's new this year, all of that fun stuff.
Yeah, so the conference is right around the corner. It's March 11th through the 13th at the Gaylord National in National Harbor, Maryland. We're so looking forward to bringing everyone together to be able to have this shared experience, a lot of technical presentations and workshops. We also have, of course, like every conference that's in cybersecurity space, the infusion of AI. AI is everywhere all throughout that conference agenda. And the conference itself will be a 3-day experience. We have some new things that we're offering this year, one of them being the See Her as Technical. So Jackie has brought that forward, where it's going to be an interesting layout of tables with really senior technical individuals out there to kind of cut through the chase and get right to the technical questions that individuals want to ask. Again, we're going to have the Career and Growth Hub, where individuals that want their resumes reviewed or mock interviews or their LinkedIn profiles reviewed, that's all available and accessible. We have over 1,000 volunteers that go through that, and 1,000 WiCyS members that go through that hub throughout their conference experience, and hundreds of volunteers. So we're really excited to have this conference come to the DC area. This is the first time on the East Coast. So we didn't know about the pizza place, but now it's on our radar, Jackie. Being in Chicago, though, we do get a little hurt when we hear that, everyone's not only coming to Chicago for their pizza or their hot dogs. So, but it's okay. I will share the pizza experience with DC as well.
Well, this is a world apart from Chicago pizza. So Lido are like, they're rectangular thin crust pizzas, and I don't know what they put on them, but this is what got me through the pandemic. So I was living in Silver Spring during the pandemic and basically survived on Lido pizza and Dunkin' Donuts, because those were the things that you could kind of order takeout from and then go pick up real quick, and be able to keep social distancing. But yeah, I have much love and respect for Chicago pizza, and this is like baseball versus cricket, very different things. So
Right.
so
Right.
no disrespect meant to Chicago pizza, and you're going to hate me. I don't really like hot dogs, so I couldn't honestly tell you if there's a hot dog place that's worth mentioning in the area, but I'm sure there is. But yeah, I'll make sure that if I do mention hot dogs, it'll be for a Chicago conference. So we'll be looking forward to, in the next few years, you getting the WiCyS conference to Chicago so that you can flex on us with all of your food.
Well, actually, the very first conference that I went to for WiCyS was in 2018 when it was here in Chicago. And
There
what
you
was
go.
really interesting is that even before that, in 2014, one of my bosses gave me a flyer about the Women in Cybersecurity conference that was happening in Tennessee, the very first WiCyS conference. And I went to go register, and it was at full capacity. So the very own conference and the organization that I'm now executive director of was one that was like, no, we're at full capacity. And I remember sitting there at the desk being like, this is where I need to be. And then all those years passed, and each and every year when the WiCyS conference was in Texas and other locations, I felt like I was too busy. I had too much on my plate. I couldn't devote the time to get away like that. But when it was here in Chicago, I thought, okay, now I'm going to go to that conference. And my whole trajectory of my career changed from that one experience of WiCyS being in my backyard to be able to go to the actual event, meet the people that I met. Didn't know what I was missing in my career until I had it at my fingertips. So I also, throughout my career, always felt like I was missing something. I always felt like I didn't have this camaraderie. I didn't have this connection, not like my lawyer friends, not like my teacher friends, not like, my nursing friends or my entrepreneurs. I mean, we were all in that space together, but I really did feel like I was missing that real strong network to brainstorm ideas, to kind of build my personal board of directors with on my career growth. And
Yeah.
I found that all at WiCyS, just in
Yeah.
a 2-day little conference that when it was here in Chicago. And so we always look forward when it comes to conference time because we know that in that ballroom, when we have the over 2,000 attendees in that one space and that main stage being so beautiful and looking out and seeing all the energy and excitement, we know that lives are changing at that very moment. Like people are going to be able to achieve financial freedom through the resources that they're making and the connections that they're making at that very event. Like it's a very powerful place to be.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think, the in-person aspect, it's
Mhm.
some of us are, like I said, I'm kind of a selective extrovert, and especially working remotely, I get in this kind of cycle of, I don't leave my house for for days at a time, and I forget how much I miss people,
Right.
and, being able to get in person with people and just have time to joke, because working remotely, when I do get on video conference with people, one, I feel like I end up talking people's ears off because I realize when I get on but it's also, video conference is a very structured thing, and you've got these like goals and things, and like the hallway con, we always say is the most amazing experience, and multiple of my closest friends right now are people that I've met at different conferences, and so I don't think you could oversell how important it is to get around people like you, and how many, I don't think you're exaggerating when you say, life-changing connections you can make at these different things, by on purpose or by accident. I love what's the term, random collisions, and I've had so many random collisions in my career and last year. Just I think I stayed in the career hub the whole time that I was there, just talking to people, and like seeing the growth that they've had over the last year from when I met them and they were like, "Oh, I'm just trying to get into security," to I had somebody reach out a couple days ago who's like, defending their thesis and found bugs at one of the very large cloud providers, and just, it's really rewarding to make those connections and being able to follow people through their careers. Amber, you said you were in Dallas last year for the conference, right?
Yes, I was.
Do you feel like you got a deeper sense of kind of belonging going from, just getting into these classes and learning these things and kind of struggling to, to get your feet underneath you in security, which can be a very daunting industry, to kind of being in this kind of I belong here state?
Oh, absolutely. And I find, like you mentioned, that there's many introverts, extroverts, and then you said pseudo extroverts, right?
Yeah, that's what I am.
But you get like, you will find your place there. You can be the most extroverted to the most introverted. I've seen many people who were like the best dressed to the most comfortable dressed. I've seen people in their pajamas, or I've seen people like I've seen this one woman there. She was in a gorgeous sparkly dress. I'm like, girl, work it. This is you. Like, I love it. I love this energy. And when I was at WiCyS in Dallas, I will say my feet hurt by the end of the whole conference because I was running back and forth to all the different um, little rooms that they had. I was networking. I was just trying to be everywhere at the same time. And I've met so many folks there, and it just, no matter what, I felt like I could be myself. I can
That's
be
it.
like the geeky, curious. I like to think of myself as like the Abby Shudo of cybersecurity. When if you've ever seen NCIS, she's the goth girl in the lab. That's kinda like me. It's like I found others that are like me.
Yeah.
And hey, we went to like a place called Hard Eight for barbecue. So a couple of us went there, and then another person, I'm gonna give a shout out to Steven Richards. He was in the scholarship cohort as well. And we were just like, you know what? Let's hang out. And we decided to go to Five Guys afterwards, and we were able to just really connect, talk, and just, um, really like it's like a place where you get to find your other professional person, your other friend, your other cybersecurity, your other hobbyist. Like you get to find that person that you can relate to and you can bounce ideas off of, you can talk about, you can really just, be yourself because that's what I don't have where I am is that type of friendship outside of work where I can just really grow my community, grow my skill set, and have those people to help keep me moving forward, push me to discovering new things,
Yeah.
to wanting to learn more, to even ask questions
Yeah.
that maybe others have not asked yet.
Yeah.
So that's what I enjoyed. And I'm gonna try to see if I can make it because I'm actually in Delaware. So it's about a hop, skip, and a jump away.
How
Yeah,
fun.
not
Would
too
love to
far.
see you there. Yeah, that's great. And what is it about it? One of our board members, before she became a board member, I remember her sharing with me many years ago that all these different cybersecurity conferences, when you leave like, oh, like the introvert of us being out and then on edge, and not on guard, but like on point, with the questions you ask and who you're associating with and who you're hanging, just always like that. And then when you leave a conference, you're just kind of like a little depleted. Like you exerted yourself so much, all your energy was at the conference, and then you leave like, drained from it. But
Yeah.
she shared with me so many years ago and she was like, WiCyS is one of those conferences where I walk out of and I'm energized. Like my cup
Mhm.
is full. Like I feel like I'm a better human from the humans that I've connected with and the people that I met there. And isn't that the truth? I mean, I feel like so many people had that experience because you can show up as your true authentic self and meet your other individuals in your circles and create long lasting friendships. So I love hearing those stories, Amber. Thanks for
Mm.
sharing.
Yeah, I think also one other aspect of what I love about WiCyS and that conference and the big takeaway is I've been to some conferences where there was a lot of ego and there was a lot of gatekeeping. I did not have that experience at all when I was at the conference in Dallas. In fact, everybody was very open. They were also very honest,
Mhm.
but they were very open and direct to the point where some conferences, of course, like some people like to gatekeep, like certain, like the, especially out, like I want to be on, I'm on the engineering pathway. I should say, I am on the engineering pathway. And when I express to folks that I want to get into engineering, when I said that at WiCyS, it was, "Oh, I gotta introduce you to this person. Oh, you gotta go to this room here. Oh, you need to talk to this other person." Or, "Hey, did you check out the robotics section? Like, you need to, immerse yourself." Where I've been to other conferences, and they were like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's true. And just give a little plug for so the part of the conference that Lynn was talking about. So I came to Lynn and I said, "Hey, I've gotten some feedback when I've asked some of the very, very deeply technical women in my network that they didn't necessarily feel like WiCyS was for them because while there were some discussions and panels and things like that with very technical people, it didn't feel like there was as much opportunity to kind of knowledge share as they wanted." And because Lynn's amazing, and every time I have a crazy idea, she's like, "Well, if you can execute it, let's see." What I kind of envisioned was something kind of like the villages, right? So if you've ever been to like an
Mhm.
RSA or a DEF CON, they have these villages, and there's like red team village and blue team village and like lock picking village.
Mhm.
And I was basically like, just give me a couple tables, give me a place where I can invite some of my very, very insanely talented technical friends where people can just socialize with them, can ask questions, they can kind of show off the work that they do. And yeah, and I think that's one of the things that I'm really excited about this year. So I have some friends that do data science and machine learning and AI for security, which is actually how I got into security as a data scientist recruited to a security company. Didn't really know anything about cybersecurity because Yeah, turns out I wrote the most insecure Python in the world because in data science boot camp, they don't teach you that much about security. I have friends in threat intelligence. I have friends in like product and engineering. And so I've got a handful of different women coming to set up this area to just really kind of be available to interact with people about these deeply technical things. So there's some great workshops and, we've got the escape room, we've got a capture the flag, we've got all kinds of really cool things going on. I'll also be recording some episodes of the podcast on site and doing some interviews. But I'm really excited about this kind of see her as technical area because I do think that there can, at other very, very high level security conferences, it can be really daunting and really intimidating. And, to walk into one of those places with all of these really high level people has always felt a little scary to me. So I'm glad that we have kind of a smaller version with the women that I'm bringing are super cool. They're very, very open and, no ego for sure. And you wouldn't ever know by meeting them until you ask them how insanely brilliant they are. So I'm hoping that that's what people get out of this is the ability to kind of swim with the sharks, but the sharks are pretty cool.
That's fantastic. We can't wait to bring that to life at this year's conference. So what a great initiative. And it's a great segue now for individuals to kind of have that introduction to that space as they go into other conferences as well, to build up the confidence and the trust in the conversations. It's
Yeah,
super.
I'm actually really excited about the timing of this conference this year being early in March because this kind of kicks off, after this conference, there's RSA and then all of these other conferences. And actually, that's probably a good chance to talk about, Lynn, there's going to be a digital version of this conference as well in April, right?
Yeah, there is. Yeah, we have our virtual conference April 22nd and 23rd. It will have an entire other career fair as well. It will have all new content. So all the content from WiCyS will be in person at the in-person conference, but then the program team developed a new programming effort for a virtual conference. Everyone that's a part of the virtual conference has access to all that content, all that information for an entire month. So it's another learning opportunity. It's a way to create more accessibility, to bring more people into the introduction of WiCyS. Individuals that might not be able to attend it in person could also have this other shared virtual experience, but also individuals that come to the conference that are thirsty for more knowledge and more skills and get connected with more presenters can join the virtual conference as well and have that momentum continuing to go strong for them. So it's a really great learning opportunity for, to Amber's point earlier, the CPEs and the CEUs, they're all available for those efforts and are delivered right after the event. So, and on top of that, those that are job hunting or the employers that are out there that are looking for the connection to the pipeline, it's another virtual career fair experience. So it's a
Yeah.
win-win
So,
for all. We love the virtual experience just as much as the in-person.
I
yeah.
was in
And then,
also the virtual one last year too, and I will say it was very, very straightforward in the career fair to use that platform. I was able to get some one-on-ones with a lot of great folks, and also the content is just as great as when you go to the conference. So if you can't make it, you can at least be here virtually.
yeah, and we would love to see everybody in person, but we know that we have people in WiCyS all around the globe, Lynn, as you said. So I am very grateful that you make that virtual option available because the more people that can experience this kind of just to see the whole community kind of come together and gather in one place is really amazing. So I think this is probably a great place to leave this. There's lots to learn about the conference, and we would love, we actually generally the conference, most of the people returning, it sells out really quickly. We've got some extra space at the resort this year. So open registration is available while we still have room. So if you're interested in that, visit WiCyS.org and you can register for the conference and see all of the amazing programming that'll be there. Lynn, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for this great conversation. It's always fun, Jackie. Look at us. You were launching the podcast with WiCyS, and we met 2 years ago on a podcast ourselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you
talking
were like,
about a full circle moment.
yeah, it's amazing because you were like, you're going to be at the conference, right? And I was like, and you're like, no, you're going to be at the conference, right?
And then
So
here you are.
yeah, yeah, I know. I have to thank you so much for letting me help and letting me run with all of my crazy ideas, whether it's this, the pathways, which we'll talk about on a later episode, like all of the different things that I come up with. You have been one of my biggest cheerleaders, supporters, and I really, really am grateful for that.
I love it. Thanks, Jackie. And thank you, Amber, for also being a part of the Security Training Scholarship, one of my favorite programs. What a homegrown program. I was part of the development of that program in 2020, and it was a labor of love just coming together with the tiered idea, how to bring it together. And so the fact that you're able to have that experience and live the life that it was intended to provide for folks completing that programming effort, you're a shining example of why we do what we do.
Yeah. And thank you, Amber, for being here today. We really appreciate the perspective of someone who is just going through the program and starting what I'm sure is going to be a really successful career in security.
You're welcome. And thank you, Lynn, for supporting and continuing to support WiCyS and the programs. And Jackie, I will say you've also inspired me where now I should consider registering to see if I can register for the conference. Maybe I'll take a day trip down there.
Yeah.
There you
Would
go.
love to
Why
see
not?
you.
That's the big takeaway from this podcast. I am inspired to see what can I do.
Yeah. And I hopefully will be there. And I'm probably going to embody the entire spectrum you were talking about of outfits, where I'll start out dressed very professionally, and then I wouldn't be surprised if by Friday I'm in a onesie. So we can all get together and enjoy ourselves. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining this first episode of Woman in the Middle. I'm your host, Jackie McGuire, and we will have many more episodes for you. I have a whole slate of amazing executives and people brand new to security, and we're looking forward to bringing you tons more content. So we hope you'll join us for the next episode. Thanks.